When you pick up a camera and look through the lens, what's your goal? Are you telling the subject's story, or are you telling yours? I want to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot lately. As photographers, we spend a lot of time trying to develop our own unique style. But what if that style gets in the way of what we're actually trying to say? This idea comes from a quote by photographer Laia Abril. If you're using the same signature style, you're putting too much of yourself there while covering up the subject itself. When I read this, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the past year, I've worked hard on refining my style, choosing the right color palette, dialing in my editing techniques, and perfecting the way my photos flow together as a body of work. And don't get me wrong, style is important, but at the same point it hit me. Am I showing my audience the subject's story, or am I making it all about me? This idea brought me to a bigger question about the art world as a whole. When we see photos by legends like Ansel Adams or Steve McCurry or Henri Cartier-Bresson, we know immediately who the photographer is. Their style is unmistakable. But does that recognition overshadow the subject? For instance, when you see Afghan Girl, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it her piercing eyes, her story, or do you think that's McCurry's photo? Or for another example, Ansel Adams. His landscape photos are breathtaking. But ask yourself, if you saw one of his Yosemite photos without his name attached to it, would it feel the same? Or is it the legend of Ansel Adams that adds to the photo's power? These photographers earn their places in history because of their incredible talent, but I'm curious, how much of their photos are about their subjects and how much about their style? This has made me reflect on my own work. I've always put a lot of thought into creating photos that feel like they're mine. When someone sees them, I want them to say, oh yeah, that's one of his. But now I'm starting to wonder if I've been unintentionally overshadowing the subjects with my own voice. I haven't started changing my style yet, but I've been thinking about what it might look like to try. For example, what if I used black and white for a while, stripping back the color to let the subject take the lead? Photographers like Sebastiao Salgado are incredible at this. His images of workers, of the earth, of people surviving unthinkable conditions, his choice of black and white forces you to look at what's happening without distraction. And then there's street photography. Henri Cartier-Bresson comes to mind. His photos are so alive, telling captivating stories of people's lives in a single image. His technique of the decisive moment is something I'd like to experiment with. Imagine focusing less on the creative style and more about being in the right place at the right time to let the story unfold naturally. Here's another thought. Do I lean too much into my color? My editing process is where a lot of my signature comes through, so what would it look like to pull back? Maybe try a little more muted palette or even no edits at all. It feels uncomfortable to think about, but maybe that's the point. Growth isn't comfortable. It all comes back to this question of balance. How do you create work that is undeniably yours while still letting the subject be the real star? I'm at the start of this journey. I haven't figured it out, maybe I never will. But I think what matters is asking these questions and trying to find the answers, even if the questions change over time. But now I want to ask you, when you see a photo, what's the first thing that grabs you? The subject? The story? The style? And if you're a photographer, have you ever thought about whether your style enhances the story or takes away from it?